What is education? Meaning, nature, and scope. Etymologically speaking, the term education is derived from the Latin words educare, which means to bring up, or to nourish, and educere, which means to bring forth, or to drag on. Some scholars argue that the term education is derived from another Latin word, educantum, which has two components, namely, which implies a movement from inward to outward, and duco, which means developing, or progressing. Given the above etymological definition of education, we can, therefore, conclude that the term education can be thought of as the transmission of the values and accumulated knowledge of a society. In this sense, education is equivalent to what social scientists term socialization or enculturation. Indeed, education is designed to guide individuals, especially the children, in learning a culture, molding their behavior in the ways of adulthood, and directing them toward their eventual role in society. In fact, in the most primitive cultures, there is often little formal learning, little of what one would ordinarily call school or classes or teachers. Instead, the entire environment and all activities are frequently viewed as school and classes, and many or all adults act as teachers. As societies grow more complex, however, the quantity of knowledge to be passed on from one generation to the next becomes more than any one person can know, and hence, there must evolve more selective and efficient means of cultural transmission. The outcome is formal education, that is, the school and the specialist called the teacher. As we can see, education, therefore, is the basis of human life. Development and progress of the human person depends on education. Education also constructs personality and beautifies it. A child conducts herself like an animal at the time of birth. At that time, she acts as inspired by his instincts. Indeed, education guides these instincts of her in order to provide maturity. It makes her behavior, her conduct, and her activities proper and socially useful. Education also motivates, encourages, and guides humans from falsehood to truth, from darkness to illumination, and from ignorance to knowledge. Indeed, it is by education that humans have reached the zenith of civilization. Nature of education. The nature of education includes the following. First, education is a lifelong process. Education is a continuous and lifelong process. It starts from the womb of the mother and continues till death. It is the process of development from infancy to maturity. It includes the effect of everything which influences human personality. Second, education is a systematic process. Education involves a transaction of its activities through a systematic institution and regulation. Third, education is development of individual and the society. It is called a force for social development, which brings improvement in every aspect in the society. Fourth, education is modification of behavior. Human behavior is modified and improved through educational process. Fifth, education is purposive. Every individual has some goal in his life. Education contributes to attainment of that goal. There is a definite purpose underlined all educational activities. Sixth, education is training. Human senses, mind, behavior, activities, skills are trained in a constructive and socially desirable way. Seventh, education is instruction and direction. Education directs and instructs an individual to fulfill her desires and needs for exaltation of her whole personality. Eighth, education is life. Life without education is meaningless and like the life of a beast. Every aspect and incident needs education for its sound development. Ninth, education is continuous reconstruction of our experiences. As per the definition of John Dewey, education reconstructs and remodels our experiences towards socially desirable way. 10th, education helps in individual adjustment. A human person is a social being. If she is not able to adjust herself in different aspects of life, her personality can't remain balanced. Through the medium of education, she learns to adjust herself with the friends, fellows, parents, neighbors, teachers, and the like. 11th, education is balanced development. Education is concerned with the development of all faculties of the child. It performs the functions of the physical, mental, aesthetic, moral, economic, spiritual development of the individual so that the individual may get rid of her animal instincts by sublimating the same so that she becomes a civilized person. 12th, education is a dynamic process. Education is not a static, but a dynamic process, which develops the child according to changing situations and times. It always induces the individual towards progress. It reconstructs the society according to the changing needs of the time and place of the society. 13th, education is a bipolar process. Education is a bipolar process in which one personality acts on another to modify the development of another person. The process is not only conscious but deliberate. 14th, education is a three-dimensional process. All processes of education proceeds by the participation of the individual in the social consciousness of the race. Thus, it is the society which will determine the aims, contents, and methods of teachings. In this way, the process of education consists of three dimensions, namely, the teacher, the child, and the society. 15th, education as growth. The end of growth is more growth, and the end of education is more education. An individual is a changing and growing personality. One of the purposes of education, therefore, is to facilitate the process of one's growth. Scope of education. The scope of education means range of view, outlook, field or opportunity of activity, operation, and application of education. In other words, the scope of education refers to the area and boundary of education, which includes the following. First, philosophy of education. Philosophy of education is the branch of applied or practical philosophy concerned with the nature and aims of education and the philosophical problems arising from educational theory and practice. Second, educational psychology. Educational psychology involves the study of how people learn, including teaching methods, instructional processes, and individual differences in learning. The goal is to understand how people learn and retain new information. Third, educational sociology. The sociology of education is the study of how public institutions and individual experiences affect education and its outcomes. It is mostly concerned with the public schooling systems of modern industrial societies, including the expansion of higher, further, adult, and continuing education. Fourth, history of education. It is also important to know background, origin, development, growth, and aspect of education. Hence, history of education is also very important, especially topics such as the method of teaching during ancient period, medieval period, and modern period. Fifth, economics of education. Education economics, or the economics of education, is the study of economic issues relating to education, including the demand for education, the financing and provision of education, and the comparative efficiency of various educational programs and policies. Sixth, method of teaching. A teaching method comprises the principles and methods used by teachers to enable student learning. These strategies are determined partly on subject matter to be taught and partly by the nature of the learner. Seventh, educational administration and supervision. Educational administration and supervision programs focus on the general principles and methods to teach students how to manage schools and other educational organizations. Eighth, problems of education. This scope of education includes problems of teaching management of education, and also suggestion and remedies for it. Ninth, population education. Population education, as defined by UNESCO, is an educational program which provides for a study of the population situation of the family, community, nation and the world, with the purpose of developing in the students rational and responsible attitudes and behavior towards that situation. And 10th, environmental education. Environmental education is a process that allows individuals to explore environmental issues, engage in problem solving, and take action to improve the environment. As a result, individuals develop a deeper understanding of environmental issues and have the skills to make informed and responsible decisions.